Welcome to Smart in the City, the Babel podcast where we bring together top actors in the smart city arena, sparking dialogues and interactions around the stakeholders and themes most prevalent for today's citizens and tomorrow's generations.
I am your host, Tamlin Shimizu, and I hope you will enjoy this episode and gain knowledge and connections to accelerate the change for a better urban life.
Smart in the City is brought to you by Babel Smart Cities. We enable processes from research and strategy development to co-creation and implementation. To learn more about us, please visit the Babel platform at babel-smartcities.eu. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Smart in the City. This episode will be hosted by one of my colleagues on the ground, so I hope you enjoy the change of voice and pace, and I'll catch you next time.
I'm your host today. My name is Alex. Today's episode is hosted here as part of Urban Future and recorded here live at the 2026 edition in Ljubljana. I'm very happy to also introduce you to our guest of today, Petar, who is the City Center Commissioner and Head of Futurraum for the city of Mannheim, Germany. Welcome, Petar.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for the invitation.
Now, we like to start our episode always with a little bit of a warm-up, with a kind of a teaser question. For you today, the teaser question is, explain to me the soul of the city of Mannheim.
Yeah, the city of Mannheim is, it's not a postcard city. It's not one of those beautiful cities. It's a working city, industrial city, is direct, very direct and honest. Some is irritated in the beginning, and it's very pragmatic. It's warm, but rough. And rough and warm are two good words to describe the soul of Mannheim.
Brilliant. You have an interesting title. You have in your title, it says Head of Futurraum. What does Head of Futurraum do?
Futurraum, as a future space, is a project for inner city development, and I used to work for the former mayor on district development. And the new mayor came, and one of his main topics was the inner city development. And so he asked me to work on the inner city development, and we had a project called Futurraum, Future Space. And I'm working on it for more than 2.5 years now, for now.
Interesting. We have many listeners that are thinking about, careers in our public sector as well. So do you want to maybe share with us a little bit of your background and what led you to your role today?
I have a maybe unusual career. When I was a boy, I made an apprenticeship as a bricklayer. I worked on construction. After that, cool. I went on evening courses, studied law, I have a degree in law. I was in a law firm, went to a Ministry of Integration of the state Baden-Württemberg. And after that, I was a city councillor, and the mayor asked me to work for him as a chief of staff. And that's what I did till 2023. And now I'm working on inner city development in the city of Mannheim. So work for the public and work for the municipality is great, is wide, has every possibility, and you're doing good things the whole day.
Brilliant.
You're trying to do it.
And we'll see lots of the great examples of what you have achieved and learned on the way throughout this episode. It's a very interesting background as well. Love to hear that. A lot of experience in different fields. Before we go into these methods and processes that we want to talk about, let us zoom out maybe for a second. If we look at the changing city center of Mannheim right now, what does change and why does it feel so urgent right now?
I must first start. The city of Mannheim is in the southwest of Germany, and we are the center of the region Rhine-Neckar with 2.5 million people. 25,000 people are living in the city center, and they all like to come for shopping and for lunch and for dinner, and that's what people do in inner city. But retail is changing. We have a high pressure, not only since Corona, already before that. And we have, everything is changing like everywhere. We have a climate change. The city is heavily sealed. If you go in the downtown area where the shops are, 96% is sealed. And so, for example, in the hot summer, We got really hot nights with, for example, around midnight with 30 degrees. If we go in the outskirts of Mannheim, it's 22 degrees.
Oh, wow.
So
8-degree difference.
8-degree difference, yeah. And it's really a high pressure to transform. And so we have a great pressure, but the question is always who moves, because we know if someone moves, he can lose. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part, right? So city centers are very layered places. Every square meter means different things to different people. And maybe now let's go into these, into your practical experiences with that. And so in a place with so many different users and interests, where do you begin to communicate and to talk about change?
If you know there's need for change, it's really important to involve the locals from the beginning. And the locals are businesses, are neighborhood associations, are people living there, are the stakeholders who are there and who are working there. And what we did was to separate. We made classical citizen participation and asked, for example, the residents. But what was really hard to handle, to work with the stakeholders, because we had a mobility trial which went bad, where we had a lot of dissonance and a polarized city. And so the first step was to collect all the stakeholders which you need to bring them on one table and let them work together.
What type of stakeholders are we talking about there? So on the one hand, you have the citizens, the people living there, visiting. But what was this other stakeholder group? Who was part of that?
Oh, we had more than 30 stakeholders working for 2 years in the project. We made a working group called City Factory. We had neighborhood associations. Mm-hmm. We had migration associations. We had, but also the businesses, the local businesses, the Chamber of Commerce. We have a property owner network, which was also developed during Futurum, and architects, landscape architects, etc. And more than 30, and they came all on one table to work on inner city development.
Very interesting, very interesting. Can you recall a few interesting moments with these stakeholder groups where you say there is like, there was a big learning from one another, or, you put them together in rooms, right? And you had discussions jointly with these big groups. These discussions can go any direction, right? So what happened there?
Yeah, I must confess that I wasn't sure if it will work because there were a few stakeholders, when they saw each other in the street, they changed the street sides, and they were talking about letters to the editor about each other. So it there were but really a high tension between them. But what we didn't start with measures to ask them what to change. We asked them, how could the city looks like in 5 years? So let's start work on a shared vision, on a common goal. And this was really hard, that they sat together, and what was good, they listened to each other. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they listened to each other, and so they saw the perspective of the other person, and this started to create a kind of empathy. And you need empathy to create a deep understanding. And, democracy is really hard, and that's what they also learned. It was the learning of the stakeholders. They were exhausted after the process. They said, please don't make that once again. But that's what's democracy, what our policymakers, city councillors, mayors, what they have all the time, yeah. And, so we started with a shared vision of the inner city, not what to do. And we painted together a big picture.
It is actually interesting. Very often in these processes, also if experts are involved very early, we talk too quickly about solutions without having a joint understanding of the situation and a joint picture for the future. How does that picture for Mannheim now look like? If you would describe it in just a few sentences, what common understanding did you come up with?
First, the picture is not so important. Important is that the stakeholders could commit on one goal. This is the point. Yeah, But for example, we had a few visions. Like for example, we wanted the people like to have an easy way as pedestrians, a good way to walk. Yeah, and that means, in fact, that drivers with cars or with a bicycle, that they have to keep an eye on the pedestrians and the vulnerable people, elderly people, or for example, families with kids, that they had to keep an eye on them. Or another example, we want to use better roofs because the city is high, it's very densely, and we need more space, and so we need to take more effort of the roofs. And now we have a project called Multi-Roofs to better use the roofs. Yeah. So we painted together a picture which we can do practically, but it's also abstract. That gives us a sign how to develop in a city. And the most important thing is that it shows a way to connect to each other and to develop together public space.
And what were these kind of agreements? Sort of what did they agree on a social inclusive city, on a more walkable? So what were kind of the things that everyone would sign off then?
Yeah, we had, for example, mobility. We talked about mobility. We have a street where we have a problem with car drivers, in general male drivers, who are driving in circles, listening to loud music and have a good time in the city by car, and so we develop strategies how to create empathy for the residents and how to create a new public space so that it's not so interesting, that it becomes less attractive to the drivers to drive through. We have shadow and greening, for example. The businesses also say we need more green and we need more shadow. And it created action when we had some planters which were used in the past, and local businesses asked, for example, for the planters. They didn't want to wait till we go to the city council and go in the planning, and after 2 years maybe we start to have action. They asked for the planters and they took responsibility. It were their planters, it were their flowers and plants. And we had more than 20 businesses who said, okay, we are maintaining now the planters and we're responsible. And this was action which was created in the city factory, and where we had a commitment that everyone, not only the neighborhoods, not only the residents, but also the businesses have to bring their part for a better inner city.
Well, it's cool to see that they did, in fact, agree on such important points during this process. You said it was a 2-year process, is that correct?
Yeah, we had two proposals which we wrote for the city council. And what's also maybe very important, we discussed on together the issues and the measures. And if someone was strong against it, we didn't take it. So we had a high commitment of 100%. So when we went to the city council in the draft, in the proposal for the city council, it was 100% city factory, 100% from neighborhood associations till the businesses, and that was a huge success.
Brilliant. So, because one of my questions now would be, if I play devil's advocate, it's a long period of time that you spent engaging businesses, stakeholders, also the citizens. Some might argue that this costs a lot of money, and what's your answer to that? Is it worth it? Is it kind of, would you do it the way again?
Alex, this is a good point. Transformation needs time. And we had the project Futuram because we had in the years 2022, 2023 a mobility trial. And we had interventions in public space. We had rerouting of streets, and the city was highly polarized after it. So it was literally everyone against everyone. Businesses, neighborhoodization, politics, really everyone against everyone. We had bad news. We had more than 300 newspaper articles, letters to the editor. And
Wow.
and this is much more expensive than if you start with a good process, involve the locals from the beginning, work on activation, and this costs less time and less money than if you start with a project and try to convince the people during the implementation of the project. So you're right, it costs, it needs time, but it's about sustainability.
Oh, no, that's good. And maybe that's particularly in those projects where there's lots of stakeholders involved, right? City centers, maybe other types of projects wouldn't need that much engagement, but I think you made a super strong case there. And you had the two examples, right? Very close to each other. Very nice. But you didn't just manage to engage the stakeholders. They were actively kind of promoting and owning parts of the project. So as you said, they took care of the planting and the greening of the area themselves without even, I assume, money or other support from the city council. That is super cool. Do you have some kind of insights into that, how that can be replicated? How do you make a simple engagement process to an actual process where, active supporters come out?
Yeah, I wouldn't say active supporters. I would say owners of the process.
Oh.
So let them, give them the possibility to develop their ideas, and if they develop their ideas, they will take responsibility and they will pay also for it. And this is very important because we got in Germany currently a crisis of the communal budgets. Mm-hmm. And for example, we are working on a horizontal greening in public space. For property owners came to us and asked us to support them to make a greening between two buildings. We don't have the budget, but we could help by finding funds from the state, and 75% is paid by the state and 25% by the locals. And if they pay €1, they will get €3 back. And so it's a collaboration between us and the state and the property owner. So you always have to see what's the common goal and how can we help that the stakeholders have a direct benefit to them. And I think this is the key: ownership and activation.
And you mentioned a super interesting thing, because municipal budgets become tighter, right? So every year we see that all across Europe. Do you actually think that these types of other forms of collaboration, where you enable more than you pay or do, is this something that's kind of coming more now, that is also kind of a solution to that budget crisis, or is it too early to say?
No, I think this is a way out of not a way out of the crisis, but to handle the crisis. Yeah, that's what you said, Alex. Is in fact how I'm working. I don't ask for from budget from the municipality, because I know we don't have anything. So it's to look for fundings, to look for stakeholders who have a budget, and to convince them that we can build together and sharpen a better inner city. Because, we have the pressure to transform. So it's obvious. We don't need to discuss it. So we have to go the way.
And as you said, it doesn't make sense to then dwindle on the problem that there is no budget and not do anything, but we find other ways. I like that. That's a very active approach to that. And you also mentioned already in some of your projects and in some of your processes, things go wrong, right? And then you stand up and try again. But maybe you want to share an example in one of the existing projects, or one of those that you haven't mentioned, where you maybe missed the stakeholder in the engagement process, or where you didn't talk to the right people at the right time, and where that created problems in the later stage. There's always these are the things I think where also our listeners learn the most from.
I can tell you about my experience with missing stakeholders. The one is the young ones. And we had a digital questionnaire, and around 4,000 people have give us the questionnaire back. But the part of the young ones was very low.
Young ones, we are talking like teenagers?
Teenagers, yeah.
Okay.
18, 19, 20, 14, 15, 16, 17, like that. And so we had a container in the public space, and me and my team, we went directly. We saw young people, and asked them. But the elder are more motivated. And so you get a picture of the city which is painted by other people.
Interesting.
And so we have seen that we failed at that point. But what we did in the next step was to go in school in downtown, ask the principal. And I had 3 young members of my team, 3 women. And they went there and made a workshop with the teenagers from the 5th till the 11th class. And so it was fantastic, great results. The second one were women. In the first phase, we had a lot of male stakeholders, and retail is male-driven. And on the other hand, 70% of the daily users are bought by women. And so there's a dissonance, and I realized it. And for our second term, we made a working group only for women, business women, and more facilitated by women. But I can give you further examples: migrations, immigrants, refugees, etc., vulnerable groups who are not able to. We can't reach them that they are getting being part of the city factory, but we're working on it. You need empowerment and you need trust, and both is not easy to reach.
And that's super interesting. And this all additional effort that you're putting in to make this a bit better. Is this like part of your personal motivation? Is this part of your mandate? Or so? I mean, this is great. Don't get me wrong, but all of this is in tight public budgets and tight timelines and stuff. It's all additional effort. So it's great you're doing it. But why? What's motivating you, and where is this coming from?
The city is fragmented. Yeah, there are so many different worlds, and I think it's a task to the city administration, to the municipality, to make a connection and not to union all stakeholders, but we have to take a look at those who maybe are not able to engage. And this is a task for the public administration, and I know change can only come from within. And if the people are not part of it, you will develop the inner city without them. And my experience is that you will fail. And so it's obvious you need those people to be part of it. And that's more than urban development. That's connecting the people and empower the people. And being on the streets, it's grassroots. So we're doing both strategy and grassroots. Yeah. And I think this is unusual in the city administration, but I love it. Yeah, I love my job.
Well, that's great energy right there. You do a lot, right? So in making the processes correct, in getting the people on board very early. But does it happen to you in your projects as well that the first time ground is broken, something is really changing in the city, then there is still a few people that kind of didn't hear or didn't want to hear or didn't join these engagement early enough, and then they start kind of yelling against it, so where tensions then really get high. We sometimes see these things when the first parking space gets reused for something. Do you see that in your work as well, that particularly when you break ground there's another wave of convincing to do?
Yeah. No, I know when I'm breaking ground, I need to talk to the people who are there in front of there. I need to involve them. And that means I make one date announcement, say, okay, we will redesign the beginning of the street, the start of the street. We will unsealing it and greening it. And in the first time, 2 come.
Uh-huh.
And then I make a second, a third, a fourth time till I have everyone on board. Because I know that's usually the people don't react. It's when you start to break the concrete and the asphalt. then they say, why didn't tell me someone what happened? Why didn't ask me, the city administration, what I keep on my mind? And it's always the same. So I go there as often as it's possible. And yes, this is not economic, yeah, but at the end they are all with us, and that's the most important thing.
And are these the kind of projects whenever there is concrete being broken and when there is something being green? Is this the projects where you then see the big resistance? Do you have other examples?
Oh, I think there is resistance in another way. It's not about breaking concrete or some plants or trees. It's about democracy. It's the question about who owns the city or who is deciding. And what we made in our process is to open the door. And it means that in that moment, not only 2 or 3 or 4 persons are sitting with the mayor, maybe 15 persons, 15 stakeholders. And that changed the power. And so it's also a question of democracy. And it's where the question is about democracy, there's also huge conflicts. Yeah.
Well, and as long as you're open to them and discussing them, you see that the outcome is there. Let's talk about the outcome a little bit. What are you hoping for as next steps in the Futurraum project, or in general for the city center of Mannheim? What do you hope to happen next?
Well, we have some greening action. I want to make some facade greenings, and we are creating shadow and greenings and places where the sun is burning in summer. And one important thing is we've got a market square. The market square is the central place, and the next step is to develop this market square. And we have in the last 20 years the development that we have now, meantime, only Turkish restaurants there. And so it's a it's not very diverse, and that's everyone is criticizing this. Also the Turkish businesses there. And so if we don't want to change the restaurants and the shops, we must change this market square and bring maybe a brewery or a winery there, and have different possibilities for eating and drinking, for one example. And this is really a huge mission. And before we start with it, we have to first empower the local businesses, the Turkish businesses, so that they can go with the change. Yeah. So it's important to bring them together, to let them work together, and then we can develop and can change the atmosphere and the offers and everything. Yeah. So this is my approach. If I know I want to change the public space, I need to connect and I need to empower the locals and to take them with my journey of development.
Well, that's brilliant, and that has such a huge impact on the people that are living there, that are experiencing the city. So I'm impressed and hope that all works out. And well, we might not be able to grant you all your wishes, but let's at least listen to them now, because if you could think about, wishing something to support you in moving these things forward faster, what would you wish for? What would kind of be Petar's wish for a better future?
Yeah, it's about commitment and ownership. And the people, the stakeholders, the residents, they must take care of the public space. And you take care if it's yours. Yeah. So ownership is the most important thing. Then activate them, because no city council or no city administration can make it on its own. So we need people, and that's the reason we need collaboration. We need collaboration between people and stakeholders who usually don't work together, and then we can have success. I'm convinced.
Well, I'll note it down, that wish, and I hope all the people of Mannheim, all the stakeholders there are listening, and you get this, because it sounds like a great process, great road you're on, and I wish you all the best for this one. Before we go to the next part of this, is there anything that we didn't touch about your work, about the activities that you still want to share with our audience that we kind of missed, or I missed in asking towards?
No. I want to maybe make some advertisement for the urban future. For example, I was the first time in Rotterdam in 2024, and I had developers with me, property owners, pastors, a really great and diverse group which came from Mannheim to the Urban Future, and the Urban Future was the great inspiration for my colleagues who went with me to the conference, and that's very important to share common wishes, to see what's possible in other countries, in other cities, and to see that yes, there are obstacles, but if we work together, we can handle it, and that's really fantastic. Yeah.
That's a great energy here as well again, right? So, and Ljubljana here at Urban Future 2026, we've both joined quite some sessions already, and I hope we have time for quite some more. That's the energy that we're looking towards. Thanks a lot for that part. As you know, we have a couple of segments left. I'll want to thank my colleagues for putting that one in now, because the one that they've chosen for us here is Flip the Script.
Flip the script. You are the one asking the questions, and I'll be the one answering them.
Where's your favorite city? You have seen a lot of cities which are progressive and are fast forward. What is your favorite city from the professional point of view?
Oh wow, that is a tough one. And it's one that we are discussing often over dinner, right? Over drinks. We have had that yesterday. Again, there's the beauty really about my job is that I get to see a lots of city, and I don't think you can build a city that is perfect, but each one has its own charm, right? I love Ljubljana, right? So we told yesterday we're the vice mayor, city of love, super safe here. You can walk outside 24/7. I love that city. I live in Stuttgart, right? Has its rough edges the same way as Mannheim, but you know, my daughter is born there, so I have a very much emotional connection to Stuttgart now. I cannot say a list of cities that I love without naming London. It's where I studied for a while. It's the whole world built into one underground system, so that does something for me. So, and now I do a lot of injustice to a lot of other cities that I've visited. But I think there are a few places, and we ask from the professional lens, that do a very good job in moving the city forward. I think Copenhagen is one to mention. That I think that what they are doing, Vienna, what they are doing with their subsidiaries and their companies, and global cities, Bangkok. I love. So I'm sorry. I should have answered in one straight way, but it's a question I'm asking myself.
That's an open question. They are always a little bit complicated, yeah. So great. Okay, and where's your next city?
The next one I'm going to is going to be Venice in a week's time. I'm supporting them to choose some good mobility solutions for the outskirts of the city. Looking forward to that one as well.
Okay.
So brilliant. That was fun. Thanks for the question too. I hope to continue the discussion here at Urban Future for quite some time. There is one last recurring question that we ask each and every one of our guests, and that is for you: what is a smart city?
A smart city is a city which helps the people to live in a highly dense, populated and area. To have a good time, to know how it is outside, how to get mobility, how the weather is, and where to find what you need, and all in a very uncomplicated way of technique. And that's a smart city, which helps the people to have a good time in the city.
And I think Mannheim is on a very good pathway there.
Yeah, we are on the way, yes.
That's good to hear. Petar, thank you so much for joining us here at the podcast and at Urban Future. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think it's such an important one for cities right now, finding the right balance between engagement and speed. And thanks again also to Urban Future for the partnership and hosting us here in Ljubljana. Again, for all of our listeners, don't forget you can always create a free account on babel-smartcities.eu, find out more about our projects, solutions, and implementations for free. Thank you all very much. Greetings from Ljubljana.
Thank you all for listening. I'll see you at the next stop on the journey to a better urban life.